Welcome back to Femme Furious, where pop culture meets a feminine framing. I am your host, Julia Rose Portella, and I'm finally getting this episode of Glow out into the world. Don't ask me why. This was the biggest mental challenge of my entire podcasting career. Why? I don't know. I talked to mentors about it. I just simply could not sit down and get this episode out into the world. It has been a real challenge. I'm really sorry if you've been waiting for it. A lot of things have been coming up in my personal life. I'm moving to Portugal in a couple months. My sister's moving to college tomorrow. I've taken a new job hosting someone else's podcast. So I've had like a few different components that are just like moving pieces that have needed my attention more than the podcast has. And I have put this on the back burner because I would never want to disrespect my favorite series ever on the entire planet. I love this series by Penn Cole so much that I would never just want to sit down and do a shoddy episode just to get it out there. So here we are. We're going to do it. A little bit of housekeeping before we do. We are finishing up Glow. That episode will come out at the end of this week. And then we will be jumping into Heat of the Everflame. So I want to let you know, if you are looking for no homework episodes, meaning you don't have to read along or watch along in order to listen to the episodes, I have some more of those coming out into the world. So I just dropped a Fast 5, which if you've been following this show and the ecosystem for a while, that's been recycled kind of a couple times, and it's finally found its purpose and its home. And that is as its own episode structure. The Fast 5 will be 5 recommendations. I give you a spoiler-free review. And then the second part of the episode dives deeper into my thoughts and spoilers about those properties. So this one was actually 6. I just covered Obsession, The Drama, Odyssey, Spider-Man Brand New Day, Sterling Point, and then Girl's Girl by Sonia Feldman. That's a book. It's wonderful. If you want some like homework-free episodes, you can go listen to that. I'll drop it in the show notes. If you've been here for a while, you also remember the Femme Frame, which is also getting recycled and finding its purpose as its own episode structure. So if you were here from the beginning and you listen to episodes like Curves and Culture, or you listen to The Bathroom Bestie, those were episodes that I did early on into the podcast when I didn't really know what I'd be covering yet. And before the content wheel sort of took off. And I'm going to bring that back as its own episode type that will be out once a month, and it will dive into some sort of historical or cultural aspect of womanhood or queer identity or feminism in some capacities. So I'm going to be doing an episode on the love languages and specifically the anti-feminist components of the love languages. So if you want to send me your thoughts, send me your opinions, send me your experiences with the love languages, you can send that to bestie@femmeandfurious.com. I have an event that I am collaborating on with a brilliant creator and friend of mine named Kate. She runs a whimsical macaron shop in Orlando, in the general Orlando area, I should say. It will be vampire trivia closer to Halloween. That event is called Fangs Across Fandom, and it will be a vampire-forward online trivia event. So if you want to be the first to know about that, send me an email, bestie@femmeandfurious.com. And also start brushing up on all of your vampire lore. Start your rewatch of Vampire Diaries, start your rewatch of True Blood, start your rewatch of Buffy. It won't all be TV stuff, but, if you've not seen those, I would brush up on them because we're going to have all different sorts of stuff from pop culture, all different stuff from different mythology. So it'll be a really fun Halloween event that I'm looking forward to hosting with her. I will have more details about that next week, and I will probably at some point next week be launching an event page so you can go and get tickets and get all of the information. So lovely, lovely. Okay. The way that this episode is going to work is we're going to start with lore drops. Then we're going to go into key moments from this stretch of chapters. And then we will talk about the key feminist themes that are explored in this stretch of chapters. So a little bit different than how we've structured the other episodes so far, but this is how we'll be doing it moving forward. As a reminder, we are going through Glow of the Everflame, chapters 16 through 30. So a lot fucking happened in this stretch of chapters, like genuinely a lot. So let's start with our lore drop. This stretch of chapters starts with Ulther's funeral, and we learn that the kindred wear red at the funerals. They wear red at the funerals to honor the kindred blood, and they wear something shiny that reflects the light to honor the glow of the afterlife. So very different than how mortals, you and I, dress for a funeral, which is wearing black, which are mourning colors for mortals. However, in the eyes of the descended, wearing black to a funeral is taken as a message that you find the soul of the person who has died unworthy to cross into the afterlife. So by Diem showing up in black, having grown up in Mortal City with mortal rules, she's at a disadvantage by showing up as this descended queen wearing black. It comes off as completely disrespectful. But we learn that they wear red for their funerals, the descended, or at least the descended in Lumnos. We don't know about other realms. We also get a lore drop about Raphael, who was Ulther's mate and was poisoned less than a month after Ulther was crowned. So, not great. It's never mentioned which house, but essentially a trade agreement went wrong and Ulther was cheated inside of that trade. To prove his strength ahead of the challenging, he issued that particular house be dismantled. With nothing left to lose because their house was being dismantled, an elder from that house poisoned Raphael and then offered Ulther the antidote if he would reinstate the house. They come to this agreement over a bonded bargain, in which she does give him an antidote, not the antidote. And so Raphael dies, but since the terms of the agreement included that Ulther could not seek revenge against the house in the bonded bargain, he sent Remus and Gareth to go kill everybody in that entire household. So that brings us kind of to this like deeper exploration of marriage versus mates when it comes to the descended, because the descended can get married for any reason. And like mortals, this is just a ceremony with rings and vows. Mostly it seems that, like many court stories, the marriages are political, and for political advantages. If your spouse dies or you dislike the marriage, you can remarry, you can get divorced. It seems like the marriages are similar to mortal marriages, but being mated is very different. Being mated is a far deeper commitment with a clear romantic intent. And so marriage for the descended does not have a romantic connotation to it. It has a typically political connotation to it. Mating bonds can only be forged by true love. Any two descended can attempt a mating ritual, but the magical bond is only accepted if the love is genuine. So once you are mated, you are committed to your mate through life and the afterlife. That bond is for forever. You can never love anyone ever again in your entire life, even if they die. So the fact that Ulther was mated to Raphael and then he died so early into his reign meant that Ulther cannot go on to love anybody else. That is his one true love. He's supposed to follow that person into the afterlife. That is the commitment that they are making by having a mating ceremony or a mating ritual. This bond that you make in a mating ritual is to honor the kindred and their willingness to give up their immortality for their mortal lovers. Once you are mated to another person, you are two halves of a whole. Even your physical body will change. If you are away from your mate for too long, your magic weakens and you can get physically ill. So we also learn in this stretch of chapters that you cannot keep a mated pair away from each other. Like, even if they are in a cell in Fortos, they have a right to access their mate at any time because of how deep this bond is. You can sense your mate's emotions. And like the bonded bargain, blood and magic are required to forge this mating bond. There can also be one-sided mating bonds in which this is called a stranded mate. And if you are following Penn Cole at all, she's like, oh no, I hope this doesn't happen to anyone that we like. So there's something to look forward to moving forward into Burn of the Everflame. Can't wait. We also get a little bit more information about Diem's eyes. And I think that this is really interesting because her eyes are going to be a continued conversation that we have on this podcast. So in the dinner that she's having with the Corbois cousins, one of the cousins asks about her eye color. Now, we know that mortals have questioned Diem's mortality because her eye color is not brown. But now the Corbois are questioning her descended nature because they're not blue. So she doesn't really have the same eye color as any of the mortals, though we know that she was born with brown eyes, and eventually over time when her powers came in, they became gray. We don't know any other realm, and we learn in this stretch of chapters because they all the other realms come to visit Lumnos for the Ascension Ball. We don't know any other descended who have gray eyes. This is not specific to any other realm. So Ulther claims that her eyes are a gift from Blessed Mother Lumnos. But that is just Ulther's very pious perspective, and we need to keep in mind, like, where do these gray eyes come from? Because I think that that is going to be a critical answer that we're looking for as we go into Burn of the Everflame. We also get a little bit more about the Blood War. So we learn that after the Blood War, the other houses in Lumnos wanted to ban the mortals completely, but House Corbois wanted to declare amnesty. So truthfully, of all the 20 houses in Lumnos, House Corbois is genuinely the most historically friendly to the mortals. So she's in the right spot, even though this is still a tough space for her to be. The fact that House Corbois stood alone and wanted to declare amnesty with the mortals is what led to the compromises that became the laws that are in place today. So the progeny laws, for example, being one of them. Speaking of Blessed Mother Lumnos, we learn that Ulther suspects that the vision that he and Diem shared is a message or a vision from Lumnos. And when Diem kind of presses in on this, he tells us in not so many words that he has had other visions that Lumnos has sent to him. We also get a major download about godhood, which I thought this was the most fascinating part in all of the chapters, to be honest. The kindred are considered gods to the mortals and the descended. That is how they were perceived when they came here. However, Alix tells us that they had their own deities back on their homeworld. So if you remember, their homeworld was completely destroyed, and they came here with their Gryverns and colonized all of Amerian. So they were not considered gods in their homeworlds. They had their own gods and own deities that they prayed to. They just happened to come from a place that has more magic or has magic in general. They brought a piece of that divine power from their gods, from whatever their homeworld was, and they brought it with them to Amerian. So that godhood that they have lived inside of them, but was not actually a part of their own divinity. They are not technically divine. They are just considered divine here. The people of Amerian, the descended and the mortals alike, are forced to look at them as gods, even though they were not actually gods. And so that begs the question of, like, well, who was their gods? Who did they pray to? How did this come to be? I would be shocked if Penn Cole does not dive deeper into that and give us some more answers. We learn that the sigil of House Corbois is a phoenix, which is offered to Diem as a medallion by Aemon, and it has 2 sapphires as the eyes to represent their blue eyes from Mother Lumnos, and a ruby over the heart to symbolize the blood of Lumnos that flows through their veins. Very different than House Hanaver, which is a white rose with a single ruby in it to symbolize that that is the only mortal blood that they have running through their veins is Lumnos's mortal lover. So telling you a lot about what these different houses values just by their sigils. Then we learn a little bit about the forging magic, which is directly connected to the soil within each realm. Diem describes it like this. It was an energy buzzing and crackling with life. It lived in the ground, but its current ran through every living thing in Lumnos. From the smallest blade of grass to the mightiest beast, could flow with it to the shores of the sacred sea and glide along its edges to the southern flatlands of Fortos and the snowy lavender mountains of Montios. So the forging magic is directly connected to the soil. And again, there is this like connection between the magic and the soil and the sovereign and their soil and the sovereign and their land that I think is really critical to pay attention to, especially since when Diem begins to use her magic, there's like spirits coming up from the soil. So there is this like deep connection to the soil and the experience of the land and how the land influences the magic. So let's talk about the key moments. There's lots of interesting stuff that happens in the funeral, but I think one of the most beautiful is Ulther trying to help coax Diem's godhood so that she can light the pyre, and his unwavering faith in Diem and how that helps her to start to unleash her power. And the way that he says, unleash my queen, the way that he like just completely believes in her, and this like unleash my queen and this comp for like a princess bride as you wish, which is just a comp for I love you. When he says unleash my queen, I'm like, he's saying I love you here. That's what he's saying to me. Her godhood, his godhood are like mixing and mingling together. They're dancing together. And then it's completely halted and turned off by her emotions when she realizes that not only is her father present at the funeral, but that he's crying. And she feels such an immense amount of grief and shame and guilt over everything that has happened with her father that it completely sputters her magic out. We also learned that Taryn and Alix are the only other descended who know about the half-mortals and have helped Ulther get them out when necessary. So we know where they stand on the half-mortals, and we know that this is also why Ulther has kept them as part of his inner circle. And later on, Aemon will sort of provoke Diem by being like, Ulther is isolating you behind all of his closest friends and like not giving anybody a chance to come and have a relationship with you. And maybe that's true, but we also learn so much about Ulther in this book, and we learn that he's helping these half-mortals, and we know that Diem knows about it, and now we know that Taryn and Alix know about it. And so you can see why if Ulther feels like Diem is somebody who is going to also want to help the half-mortals, which he knows, he understands this about her. Even by the time that she fumbles at the Ascension Ball, he's like, I already know what your plans are and I'm willing to help you. And so we see why him placing her next to these people is important to him. And not only that, but, you know, Ulther and Diem falling in love inside of this book, Taryn, Alix, Lily, and Eleanor are the people that are the closest to Ulther. And so in this funeral scene where Diem is really hitting it off with Taryn and really hitting it off with Alix, like getting along with these people who will become her friends and advisors and confidants, like is so important to Ulther to see that he can maybe have it all or have at least more than he thought he ever would. And this is the love story, right? The love story that is unfolding between Ulther and Diem by the time we get to chapter 20 is like a really fucking clear picture of this. Penn Cole is like Romanticy's final boss, in my opinion. She just does this shit so well, and she's a fan of the type of work that she's doing, and you can just tell that she is. She loves that we love it. She loves to engage with the fans over this world that she's created and this romance that she's created. The way that they are slow burning, the way that she is so conflicted about Henry and cannot stop finding herself wrapped up in these torturous situations with Ulther. She says about Ulther, every blink is a battle, every breath is a war. She wants to kiss this man so badly. And instead, she curls into him and hugs him. And she says, I was a coward. hiding from his desire in his very own arms. I mean, she's so hyper aware of this tension that is building between them, this lust that is building between them. By the time that we get to the Ascension Ball and they're dancing together, she's like, this is just lust. It's like Luther is making this insane declaration of love and romance to her. And she is trying so hard to convince herself that it's nothing more than just feeling physically attracted to him. As far as other key moments, one of the best moments in the entire series, in my opinion, is Diem making Luther beg for Eleanor's forgiveness. In case you need a reminder, Luther is annoyed that Eleanor, as Diem's only chosen advisor so far, has allowed Diem to walk into this funeral wearing a black dress. Luther is like going in on Eleanor, and Diem then makes him later on when they're alone and they're having some drinks all together. She goes, "Oh no, that won't do at all. You nearly made my dear friend cry. That calls for some serious groveling." I dipped my head. "Down there, on your knees." He shot me a dark look. With all due respect to my lovely cousin, the only person I'm getting down on my knees for is you, my queen. Okay. Like, Luther is so daddy, I can't handle it. He is so sexy. The way that he just shamelessly flirts with her, the way that he smiles around her, the way that he opens up around her, the way that his serious facade falls away. He's not the brooding prince. He is her devout worshiper. Like, I just cannot get enough of fucking Luther Corbois. He literally makes the top of my book boyfriend list every single time. He is top tier. Nobody comes close. Sorry, they just don't. He ends up getting on his knees, right? He grovels and begs for Eleanor's forgiveness. Eleanor and Diem are like giggling, girling out over this. They think it's so funny. And as they're all getting ready to leave her chambers, Diem pulls Luther aside and she's just like, "Thank you for playing along." And she gives him a kiss on the cheek. The passage then goes, his hand curled into a fist, tugging at my hair, gently but enough to pull a gasp from my lisp and an arch from my back. He leaned into my ear. "If a kiss is the reward, my queen, I'll get on my knees for you whenever you want." Okay. My God. I just, at the ripe age of 34, just realized that whoever I meet will just never compare to Luther, and I have to accept that. And it's a hard thing to accept. So let's go to dinner with the Corbois cousins. This is the first time that Diem is really engaging with the Descended without Luther as like an immediate crutch for her. As we know, Luther is seemingly preoccupied with Ileana, and this kind of pushes her towards Aemon for the entire evening. And Aemon makes it clear that he's not only interested in courting her, but is direct about how he wants to go about it. He's a court schemer, and he doesn't pretend to be anything otherwise. He's down for the game. He's down to help Diem in this way. He also wants to get close to Diem. And the reasons why are because he values his power, and he makes that very clear to Diem and to everybody else. He doesn't try to pretend to be something that he's not, and this is why Diem spends so much time entertaining things with Aemon, even if she doesn't feel anything for him romantically. She literally values people's direct honesty at this point, which is also why it's so hard for her to put her full faith in Luther, because she realizes that there's a lot of things that he's keeping from her and it bothers her, and she doesn't understand why he's supporting her, and he can't tell her why or won't tell her why. And that disconnect from his true honest intentions about why he's supporting her is what is such a disconnect in their relationship at this point, even though they have these feelings for each other. So this is also a challenge for her. Diem is constantly caught between the mortals and the descended. She's literally both. She's half descended. And while she grew up with the mortals and we spend a lot of time in the mortal world and in her mortal day-to-day experience in Spark of the Everflame, so much of Glow of the Everflame is about her finding her footing as a descended. So the fact that she's trying to justify her actions at the funeral by wearing black because that's how the mortals show their respect is just a door that opens for the fucking contempt that the other Corbois cousins have towards the mortals and find Diem to be weak because of her upbringing, right? So this is just a taste of how difficult her mission will be on both sides. Neither side will see Diem as a friend to the mission that they're on because these two groups are going to war with each other. And Diem is genuinely somebody who's in the middle. She does not want to sacrifice the lives of the mortals and feels the plight of the mortals having grown up in a mortal setting. But now she's discovering all these new things about herself and building friends and relationships and people that she loves and cares about in the descended world. And so she wants to genuinely be somebody that can bring the balance of both of these things and create harmony amongst both of these groups. But her path towards that, when she realizes how much both of these groups hate each other, is just showing how difficult this is going to be. Diem exposes that she's been in Luther's room, and this is a big scandal. No one has been in Luther's room, not even Lily. This is a big fucking deal. The entire table goes quiet. And not only she had been in his room once, she's been in his room twice. She spent the night in his room. She healed in his room, and then he brought her back in his room to show her the book with all of the half-mortal children that he has saved. So Ileana is fucking furious. She even notes that Aemon gets a lot chillier after this because she's essentially unintentionally offering up some pretty big information, which is that she has done something not once but twice that nobody else, not even his sister, has ever done. But it is here at the dinner where Diem actually secures a big part of Luther's heart. So much of this book we spend in Diem's perspective and seeing all of the ways that Luther is winning her over. But we see here that this is something that she can offer to Luther by defending scars. And when the cousins claim that she can have all of her scars healed away, and they start talking about how the descendant perceive scars, which is as a weakness, and that Ileana says Luther promised to have his scars healed before he was ever king. This genuinely hurts Diem's heart. She's like, how many times has Luther had to sit through conversations where he has had to justify keeping these scars again and again to himself and to other people? And so she proclaims that perfection is boring, which is true. And Diem has noted this before. She's noted this about Henry. Henry's idiosyncrasies, like the little things about his face, his broken nose from a bar fight, like all of these different things are what make him so handsome to her. So we know that she thinks that this is true. And this isn't something that she's just saying for the frivolity of it, but because she actually believes it. And so she says perfection is boring and feels a sense of pride over what she has survived. And what she has accomplished. She's like, I think that scars are a testament to everything that you have ever conquered in your life, and shares this out loud with the Corbois cousins and specifically to Luther. She goes on to be like, if Luther was my king, I would insist that he never has his scars removed. And this leads to a conversation where Aemon's like, well, good thing he's not going to be your king then. And one of the other cousins is like, well, he could be a king consort and it would make a smart match because they're both very powerful. And then goes on to be like, think about the powerful kids that they would have. The crown would stay with the Corbois for many centuries. We also know that this is not necessarily true. We know that powerful descended are not born from other powerful descended because it's been tried. And we've had this conversation with Teller before where he's like, there's a reason why you and Luther have so much power and not other people. Like, think about how Luther is so powerful and Lily really isn't. So we know that that two powerful descended procreating, essentially having a kid, doesn't necessarily create a powerful descended. That magic comes from something and somewhere else, specifically from our knowledge or our understanding of it, from the kindred and who the kindred feel is worthy of that much power. Anyway, now that the idea of Luther being king consort is up on the table, Luther A shows his support for Diem by being like, the queen can pick whoever she wants. And he does this so that she knows privately between the two of them that he supports her with Henry. But then he goes on to say that he's more interested in serving her than marrying her. And while this sort of leaves Diem feeling dejected. Imagine how many people, like cough, cough, Ileana, have attempted to seduce or be friends with or paired with Luther because they assumed that he would be king. And Luther goes on to confirm this later on when he's like, it took me a long time to realize that people weren't really my friend. So in his own way, as Diem shows her loyalty and defense of Luther over his scars, Luther is doing the same by showing Diem that his loyalty to her has nothing to do with whether or not she can provide him with titles. And I love that. And then this sort of just gets like solidified later on when Luther confronts her about whether or not she was serious about the scars, and she sort of takes him on a tour of her scar tattoos. She goes to tell him all these stories, how she was caught by a rusty chain when she was swimming, how she fell on some broken glass after tackling a boy who was trying to trip her while they were racing. Like, all of these different stories that she has about her life. And she kind of is like, I showed you mine, now show me yours. And Luther unbuttons his shirt and shows her the entirety of his scar. And he's like, you've got me beat on number. I've got you beat on size. And she's like, it's not about the size. It's what you do with it. Like, they're joking around over this thing and forging intimacy over something that Luther has really relentlessly been criticized for in such a cruel manner by the Descended, and particularly by Ileana, for his entire life. So to have Diem show him all of her scars and tell him all of these stories is something that is so special to him, and I think continues to win him over. It is also in the stretch of chapters that we welcome back Perth, baby Perth. We love him. He was the guard that Diem saved in the fire, if you needed a reminder. We love Perth. He's the best. And then we have the shoe scene, possibly the best scene ever in the entire series. Diem is drunk after the Corbois dinner. She's a little bit jealous because it looks like Ileana and Luther have left together. She's definitely horny by the time that Luther shows up, and Luther, ever faithful, demands to take off her shoes. He's like, I'm sworn to protect you, even if it's from yourself and being drunk and tripping over your shoes. So he swoops her up. He throws her onto the bed, which subsequently breaks part of the dress off, demands her foot, which she slowly drags up his leg with the heel on, right? Before placing her heel over his heart and digging in with the heel. Luther then grabs her ankle and drags her foot higher to place it over his shoulder. Okay, so now we're in sexy, sexy position. He then takes her waist and pulls her into him so that her leg is sort of like flush with his body. So her thighs, the back of her thighs and her butt are now against his hips as he's standing and she's laying on the bed. He then undoes the straps of her shoes gingerly. And as he's doing it, he's massaging her legs as he goes down. By the way, these heels, if you need a reminder, go all the way up to her thighs. So he's undoing them from her thighs going down, massaging her skin as he does them. He gives her a good girl, which chef's kiss, we fucking love. And the fandom goes wild because what could be better about this scene? Nothing. It's perfect. When these two argue, Diem is letting Luther know that she wants transparency. She doesn't understand why she should trust him, and that at least with the other people in her life, she understands their intent and that she respects honesty. Remember, at this point, everyone that she loves has been lying to her. She finds out that Henry has been lying to her about being part of the Guardians. Andre knew that she was Descended and kept it from her. Orly isn't really missing. That Orly, most of all, is the one that has kept Diem from her authentic self and has put her in a position where she's really at a disadvantage now that she has become queen. And that brings us to the Ascension Ball. There is a lot to talk about here, starting with the seeds of doubt that Aemon is able to plant in Diem about Luther, especially because Luther has not offered her transparency. So she's having a hard time wrapping her head around what Luther's objective is to helping her. We have two very different sides of the story. Luther, who is saying that Aemon will only keep quiet about Henry if Diem went to the ball with him. And then Aemon, who claims that Luther knew that Aemon asked Diem to the ball and agreed to persuade Diem to go with Aemon in order to keep Henry away because he also doesn't want Henry at the palace. So two very different sides to the story. He also then points out that telling other people about Henry would make House Corbois look weak. So he doesn't want to do that. It would ensure that she's challenged, which he also doesn't want to do. He wants to ensure that she becomes queen because if she doesn't, that means that Luther is going to become king. And he's like, and that is a fate worse than death. It's something he doesn't want. So he points out that Luther has isolated Diem from the rest of House Corbois, and he's not wrong about this. But it's a matter of why and who we're willing to trust, and who Diem will be willing to trust, rather. Henry shows up, he's dressed to the mortal nines. Despite how we may feel about Henry, if he didn't care about Diem, he wouldn't have shown up dressed at all. He doesn't recognize everything that Diem has lost. And I mean that every single conversation that Diem and Henry have is an emphasis that their philosophies on life are vastly different at this point. She's lost her complete concept of self. Her total knowledge of who she believed she is has been completely stripped down to the bare bones, and she's had to refigure out all of these things about herself and recontextualize her entire life and everyone that she knows. She has to recontextualize her relationship to her mother, her father, now her brother. She can't go back to her mortal home. She can no longer be a healer. And worst of all, she has this insane knowledge and pre-grief of the fact that she is going to outlive every single person that she loves. So Henry only sees what she has gained, which is a crown and power. And that's something that he covets because he doesn't have any of it. Many people around Diem will continue to tell her over the course of the series what this war will cost, but what's clear is that she doesn't want any innocent lives to be wasted at the expense of it, whether they are descended or mortal. So when she says to Henry, you can't do a coup right now. You can't do that because there's children in there and they could get hurt. And Henry's like, it's fucking war. Sorry. The idea that she could want to preserve life and as much of it as possible, especially if they're descended and different or if they're mortal and different, depending on which side of the spectrum she's talking to, is something that is hard for these other groups of people to sympathize with. Even though it is the most honorable thing that she is doing, she wants to preserve as much life as possible, no matter whose life is in front of her. She's not judging based off of their eye color. She's not judging based off of their magical abilities. She just thinks that if you're alive, you are worthy of compassion. You are worthy of a chance or an opportunity to choose, what kind of life you want to live for yourself. She values agency. It's one of the best things about Diem. And Henry doesn't understand this or respect this. And she says, the Guardians are so radicalized that we don't see this in the same way. And it's something to note because as we get further into her relationship with Luther, we will see that they are much more aligned in their ideology and that whether or not Luther agrees with something, he does mean what he says in this stretch of chapters, which is if you give me a command out there, I will follow it because you're my queen and I will do anything for you. But in here, I will let you know if I think that you're making a mistake. And he means it. He knows that she is somebody who's going to want to preserve as much life as possible. And so he's using that as a form of strategy as they continue on through the series because he knows that that is her top goal. He doesn't have to be told because it's also what he wants as well. So, such a beautiful way of showing here how you could love somebody and care about somebody and also have a different opinion from them. And I think in the political climate that we're all in right now, it's impossible not to feel something in this conversation that Diem and Henry are having together because I think so much of COVID and so much of this Trump era of politics has exposed how different we are from the people that we love and care about. Not for everybody, but for some people. And the radicalization on both sides, but has allowed us to see where our values sit and how to navigate these relationships with people that we love and care about, even if they have a difference of opinion from us. And that is such a hard thing that Diem wants to do. And we we go about things in our current world pretending like there's no nuance or no shades of gray. And Diem understands that there's more to the preservation of life than just deciding that one group is bad, that the guardians in totality are bad, or that the descended in totality are bad. She has learned that there are mortals that she's grown up with, that she loves, that she cares about, who have a right to feel the weight of the oppression that they've been experiencing. And also she learns that not every descendant that she's met is a mortal, hating, oppressor, that there are good people amongst the descended who will stand with her and will fight with her and believe in the things that she believes in. And the reality is that she needs both, that she needs to be able to stretch across the aisle both ways. And so I love that we have this conversation here because she's recognizing, I think, in real time how different her and Henry are. So Henry tells her that there's 200 mortals outside, that they're ready to kill the descended, and that they have bombs, and that they have weapons, and that they can fight against descended magic because they've done it before, which he claims they did at the Bennett Armory. And this is just something I want to keep in mind, because by the time we get to the end of the stretch of chapters, Andre is dead. And we don't know who's done it. And I want to hold on to this little detail that Henry says here, which is that the Guardians have fought against descended magic before. Because I think that is important. I can't wait till we get to Burn of the Everflame and discover who it is that has killed Andre. But Henry is my number one suspect, in case anyone needs a little teaser taster. So Diem has Henry held in the dungeon until the party is over. We then have all of the gifts from the other realms of Miriam, just to give everyone an eye reminder as we go through. So Fortos, they have red eyes, and the descended there show up with a blade that she suspects is made by Breck. So very fun and cool little wink and nod from us. Montios with their lavender eyes. She says that they are druid. So it's a good visual for us, which is why I put that in there. And she also lets us know that they don't speak. Their gift is a fur-lined coat that is enchanted to keep the wearer warm, no matter what. Arboros with their green eyes come with a potion to cure any illness except those that are directly from the gods, aka anything from Godstone. Faunos, yellow eyes. Two cute furry animals that they claim are a delicacy for Gryburns, in which Diem gives them to Lily and is like, do not let these anywhere near Sarai. Igneos has orange eyes. They offer her white spider silk scarf that is so strong it cannot be penetrated by any metal weapon, no matter how sharp. So, pretty big deal. Meros, they have blue-ish eyes. Different than, I would say, Lumnos blue. More of a tealish blue, like the color of the ocean. The Meros descended, in which Diem is I fucking love them. They're rowdy, they're drunkards, they're vulgar. She's like, these are my type of people. She's like, they give me a compass that points to the heart's desire. And then she notes that as she holds it, the compass spins to the back of the castle. And she's like, is it an adventure out to sea? Is it my mortal home? What's happening out there? My guess is that that's where Ulther is. That's my guess. Then we have Umbros with their black eyes, and we meet Simon, who is very salacious, keeps projecting into Diem's mind all of these scandalous, images of them fucking and everyone pleasuring themselves to it. Because that's what Umbros is, right? Umbros is the pleasure den. And so Diem uses her godhood to fight off his magic. And when Ramus is like, hello, you have forgotten to give the gift from your queen, Simon is like, actually, the Umbros gift was already given to Diem. And he reminds Diem of this conversation that she had with the woman in the alleyway where she's like, stop taking the flame root. So we discover that the Queen of Umbros was on Lumnos soil, uninvited, which is punishable by death, in order to deliver this message about the flame root and the prophecy to Diem. So that is her gift to Diem. And then last but not least, we have Sophos, who have rose-colored eyes, and they bring two gifts. One is the Orb of Answering, which will respond with a yes or no to 3 questions of Diem's choice, so long as the answer is known to any living being with the kindred's blood. Fascinating. They also invite Teller to study, and then we learn that the Sophos descended are staying for a few days to conduct business with the Bennett house, which, if you remember from book 1, when she is visiting Evram and she's on her mission, that the Bennetts and Sophos are in some sort of cahoots about some sort of weapon that they are creating to fight against the rebels. So the descended are staying, presumably for that reason. Diem then overhears a conversation between Ileana and Ulther, where Ileana is fucking dragging Diem through the fucking mud, and Ulther is not having it at all. He threatens Ileana, and he threatens all of House Hanaver if they continue to disrespect Diem, and it's sexy to listen to. Ulther and Diem then have the last dance for romance tonight. They are doing the last dance bit where he tells her that the Umbros descended had the Guardians throw the more harmful weapons like the bombs into the sacred sea. So they won't be able to plan an attack like this for a long while. Diem then starts speaking French because she's like, what do we do next? She's dropping we like she got her passport stamped. Don't worry, we will talk about Luther's confession. We're just going to talk about it in the burn book. So don't think I'm skipping over it. I'm leaving it for a little bit later. So they have this like wonderful dance, right? Ulther confesses his love. Let's just leave it there because I'm going to read the whole thing a little bit later. Then we go into the first house meetings. The first house meeting is with House Bennett, and they are not happy that Andre is there. Evram wants all of the Guardians who were responsible for the attack publicly executed and wants their families locked up and wants all eligible mortals conscripted into the army. When Andre claims that there's not enough weapons to support that, Evram is like, let Fortos buy more then. Let them buy more from me, an arms dealer. After this conversation in which Diem is like, I am not happy with the compromise that Ramus is attempting to make on behalf of me in these houses. Diem then lets her temper, kind of shine through. And she's like, I'll let you know if I think that deal is worthy. So she kind of pisses off House Bennett. When she goes to have a private conversation with Andre, he's like, I need to resign. This is not going to go well. We can't do this 20 times over. People are not happy that I'm here. And your temper is not helpful, and it makes you feel righteous, and it's not serving a real purpose. So he offers his resignation. He thinks that his presence is making things worse than making things better. And she's like, but I need you here. I need to know that there's someone I can trust. And he calls her selfish for wanting him there when she's got an entire realm to think about. So she sends him home. And this follows with Andre's murder. So when Diem shows up to the house, Ulther is there. For why, we don't know. Ulther is not on my list of suspects, by the way. She sees that someone from the Royal Guard is on the ground. She sees multiple descended that have been beheaded. She says that there is blood everywhere. And written on the walls in blood, Slytherin style, is half-breed, mortal lover, rebel scum. She says her father's face was in a state of disbelief, meaning he was shocked either by the attack or more likely who had attacked him. And Diem says that there was tissue under his nails, meaning he fought somebody mortal, since only Fortosian steel can pierce descended skin. So he cannot fight against a descended in a physical way and be able to get tissue underneath his nails. His throat was slit wide open. Now, this was of interest to me because this is something that Diem notes with one of the people that she tries to save inside of the armory fire. She says, this is not somebody who died because of the fire. This is somebody who died because they were brutally had their neck slit open. So similar to something that we've seen from a Guardian attack before. And that there are stab wounds all over his body, meaning that this person hated him so much that he continued to stab him long after he was dead. The blade that killed him, or that is stuck in his body for Diem to find, is descended. It's Fortosian steel. It's bedazzled with pink gemstones. So we have to talk about who's my top list of suspects. My number one top suspect is Henry and the Guardians. This is coming right after the Ascension Ball. And then all of these conversations with the houses start. So mind you, she's just pissed off Henry. She's just seemingly betrayed Henry. And she's thwarted this attack that the Guardians had. And so in order to rile her up, the Guardians go and make it seem like a descendant has killed Andre, even though we know that, number one, the Guardians don't like or respect Andre. They think that he is a descended sympathizer because he has worked in the descended army. Number two, the slit throat, we know from the armory attack that they've done this to somebody before. We know that they stole a bunch of descended weapons inside of the armory because Henry and the rest of the Guardians that she ran into on the road to the armory in Spark were carrying carts and carts of stuff. So they have a bunch of descended weapons, aka the only types of weapons that can hurt descended. A mortal weapon can't pierce their skin, only the Fortosian steel. And so they've stolen a bunch from the armory, meaning they have access to descended weapons. Henry also just told her, we know how to fight descended that have magic. And that might be true for a small section of descended, like the armory, where they're caught unaware and there's not many of them, et cetera, et cetera. So it's possible that if there's only 3 or 4 of the royal guard that are posted at Diem's house, that the mortals would be able to overtake them. So the mortals, the Guardians, particularly Henry, as the one who led the charge. The other thing that we have to consider is House Bennett, who was in this meeting with Andre, and who would also have access to all of this stuff. And then, of course, House Hanover, which just fucking hates Diem. So I would say those are our top 3 contenders. But the Guardians, my number 1. She is in such a deep state of grief that her raw silvery power blasted around her. She says it expands in a sphere that was at once hot and cold, dark and light, life and death. It hissed with a deafening hum of energy that sounded and felt ancient. It obliterated everything it touched. My father's body, gone. The blood on the floor simmered, then boiled, then evaporated. The Corbois medallion around my neck, the jeweled dagger in my hand, Breck's blade on my thigh, all of it melted away, dripping into the soil before charring into chunks of ash. So a couple times she's used the flash of silver light. Again, a type of magic that we don't know where it comes from. It's not the same as luminous light. And it all ends with like ash falling. She did this with the wolf in Spark of the Everflame, if you can remember that too. At the end of all of this, there is a crater. This is the second one that she's created. There was a crater that she created when she first expelled her magic with Ulther in the dungeons. And it is black and scorched earth. She says that she sat for hours in Ulther's arms, that all of his clothes burned away, but that he was able to hold her. So here they are like naked against each other, which is insane. But anyways, she says, for hours I sat in Ulther's arms, burning, meaning spending all of the silver energy that she has, is my takeaway from it, and sobbing, screaming as the excruciating pain of loss devoured me whole. I had the vague sensation of the well inside of me slowly draining, my sorrow flooded out with my magic, leaving me hollow and certain I would never feel whole. Hours. She did that, burned everything away for hours. That is how strong her magic is. Like, that is crazy wild. We need to keep that in the back of our mind. That is a fuck ton of magic. And with that said, that is the end of those chapters. So let us go into the key feminist themes. Number 1, Diem's relationship to being descended. So Sarai gives Diem a confirmation that she should wear the bold, sparkly red dress. But because Diem was raised as a mortal, we wear black to the funeral. So she opts for black, which in the world of the descended is like a flat out diss. Even with Sarai's nudge, no one thinks to inform Diem of their customs. In part, this is on orally from keeping Diem so far away from the descended that she has like zero knowledge of it. but it's also on every single one of the Corbois for not considering that they should inform her of the proper protocol for a custom that she has clearly never, ever fucking partaken in. Not just Eleanor, who is the one that is, of course, because she is a woman, taking the brunt of the guilt and the shame, despite the fact that Luther and Ramus also did not give her any guidance here and have been offering counsel to Diem just as freely as Eleanor has. Yet Eleanor is the one to bear the emotional brunt of it because naturally she is a woman. Diem then goes on to thank Sarai later on for taking care of her. And like, when is the last time we think that anyone has ever thanked Sarai? In chapter 17, Taryn sort of insults the mortal schooling, insinuating that they teach mortals that the descended are evil monsters. And Diem does not stand for this, and she tells him that actually the mortals are taught that the descended are perfect, and that it is treason for mortals to say otherwise. She says, the crown decides what information mortals are allowed to know, and if we try to learn more than we're supposed to, we wind up on the end of a descended blade. I mean, the way that the descended are so quick to judge her for being less than, and particularly Taryn, and the way that she has feared over Teller not being able to finish his descended education because it is far superior, is this like painful thread of just how much discrepancies there are between these two groups of people. And that Taryn doesn't even understand that the descended are the ones who are in charge of the lack of education that Diem has, or so he would perceive what would be a lack of education. In chapter 21, she's all dressed up for the Corbois dinner, and she says she looks sexy and feels confident, but that she also feels like a stranger. And again, this is like her relationship to feeling descended. It shows the depth of how uncomfortable she is with her own sex appeal, when like sex appeal is something that is displayed prominently across the descended. And then in chapter 25, her relationship to being mortal versus being descended, where they're going to the ball, the Ascension Ball, and she thanks all of the servants. She goes, thank you so much for your hard work this evening. I'm sorry to get in your way. And she genuinely means that. She thanks all of the servants. And Aemon's like, no one's probably thanked them before. It's probably like thanks enough that we let them live in the house. Like the way that she has a reverence and respect for the hard work that other people are doing to make these things happen for her, and not losing her compassion or empathy or understanding of things simply because she's now in a position of power. Instead, being in a position of power and using that as a way to be exemplary of how we should treat people who don't have it. And in particular, the way that she just organically does it for these Corbois cousins, and what that means for the path forward for many descended. So speaking of Diem, let's talk about her evolving relationship to the concept of her body and femininity. In chapter 16, she says, the sensuality with which the descended put their skin on display was still deeply intimidating. I wasn't ashamed of my body, but nor was I proud. It was simply utilitarian, a tool meant to meet my needs, whether that be working, fighting, or sex. I had never imagined my flesh as something to be admired. So Diem is now thrust into this world where she's surrounded by the standard issue of beauty, this like Instagram filter beauty and perfection in the way that the descended look, and is continuing to contend with the way that she has learned to experience her femininity and her concept of beauty and her relationship to her desirability now that she is acclimating to the fact that she is descended and her physical body and the nature of her physical body and what comes with it. In chapter 19, she's unsure if calling her magic forward without releasing could send her body into shock. And so the truth is that she doesn't know anything about her body anymore. And this also filters into her relationship of her femininity and her relationship to her body, as her body and her experience of being descended is changing. In chapter 26, she says, the all-white ensemble, together with my colorless eyes and snowy pearl-embellished hair, painted a picture of pure, innocent queen, a blank canvas, a blushing bride, a white flag of surrender, soft, virginal, harmless. All the things I wasn't. Only my dark, thorny crown hinted at what lay beneath. So she goes into the Ascension Ball describing herself in this very feminine way, that the feminine perceptions and how she feels about them virginal, right? Harmless, blushing bride, soft, and that these expressions of her femininity in this context through the mask that she's wearing as she goes through the Ascension Ball is a weapon that she is wielding and learning how to wield her femininity as a weapon. And I love that. And then in chapter 29, when Andre shows up, Taryn's like, your father's telling us how you refused to wear clothes for a month straight. And then Eleanor's like, and how you used to set all your dresses on fire because you couldn't climb trees in them. So this isn't anything new. Diem's relationship to her femininity has been tempestuous for her whole life. So this isn't something that she's just starting to figure out. It's something that she's having a continual evolution with, that she didn't want dresses when she was younger. She then had a loss of her sense of her body and autonomy and agency with the flame root, and now is rediscovering a whole new era of her body and what that means. So really interesting. Diem is also somebody who values agency, and we see this again too in chapter 16 when she asks Sarai if she should wear a saddle to ride her, and Sarai gives her like a silent side eye, like, bitch, no. And Diem respects that. She doesn't try to override Sarai's agency or desires. And I think Diem's relationship with Sarai is one of the telltale signs of the type of ruler that she will be. She does not want to abuse her power over her knowing that Sarai has to comply because of the forging magic. And so she seeks Sarai's opinions and honors it as often as possible. And there is a mutual respect between her and Sarai because of that. Even though Diem is terrified, she lets Sarai play. She lets her soar. She lets her show what she's capable of, which she has likely not been able to do for a very long time, particularly because Ulther was sick. In return, Sarai beats out even Ulther to be the first one to bow to Diem and show her her respect when she lands and drops her off at the funeral. And then in chapter 29, Ramus takes Diem's choice away from admitting that she's half mortal at all. And this is something that Diem explicitly notes. And we're with her in this understanding of how much she values it and how awful it feels when it's taken away from her in this context. So something to track and note as we go through the rest of the book. And then I want to talk about fatherhood because we have a lot about Oralee and motherhood over the course of the series. But this stretch of chapters gives us a lot about fathers. It is implied that Gareth has physically abused Aelin and Taryn. And we know that Ulther and Ramus have a very terse relationship. So this feels nearly in stark contrast to Andre, who takes responsibility and accountability for the behavior that he displayed in the fight with Diem and agrees to be on her crown council, even though he knows it's not the best idea, simply because he knows that Diem needs him. And, you know, they never get to heal the last fight that they have between them. And I think that that is critical. Last but not least is girlhood. The way that Eleanor has Diem's back and vice versa. Diem seeks out her advice at the Corbois dinner. She and Eleanor eavesdrop together. And you know what they say about girlfriends who eavesdrop together? They stay together, okay? Diem confides in her about Henry. She also confides in her about this conversation with Ulther where he confesses his feelings for her. And then there is this quote from Eleanor, which I think just like summarizes the depth of their relationship, in which Diem has really needed a girlfriend, somebody that she could really truly have as like a best girlfriend. And I think that this summarizes what Eleanor could be to her when she says, everyone says the phoenix represents dying and coming back as something new, but I disagree. I think it's a symbol of surviving when the world burns down around us. It's a reminder that no challenge can destroy the parts of us that truly matter. We're not reborn in the flames, we're revealed. So giving her this amazing sense of companionship and confidence when she needs it around these decisions about how much Diem's life is changing. And Eleanor being like, if you're holding on to Henry because it's something that's familiar and it's giving you a sense of stability when everything else is chaotic, you might want to look at Ulther. So let us go into the burn book where we will look at the superlatives for the episode, starting with the Bold and Bothered Award, which is strictly for the Femme and the Furious. It is the quote or the moment that relays the most feminine rage. And it is Diem being like, you're all using me. This whole goddamn house is using me. Just because I'm choosing to play nice for now doesn't mean I've forgotten that I'm a mouse in a pit of hungry vipers. And of course, that is in a fight with Ulther, as it always will be. The Shiro Award. This award goes to the baddie who is the most inspiring or the moment that is the most empowering. And it goes to Diem, who says, a scar is a sign of survival, of endurance. It's a sign that its bearer has triumphed over what might have killed a lesser person. To show off your scars is to tell the world you're not ashamed of what you've overcome. Frankly, I can't imagine a better symbol of strength. And if Ulther were my king, then I would make him swear to me he would never remove it. I hope he wore it with pride for the rest of his life. The Femme Fatale Award, for the most smash the patriarchy moment of the episode, and I have a few here. Number 1, Diem turning the accusations of her killing Ulther from House Hanover and flipping it into a challenge against Fortos and House Corbois. Chef's kiss, fucking brilliant. And then also Ulther telling us that Everflame is touchy about his height. And I just think that that is so canonically masculine and funny, coming from Ulther, who is obviously tall. Speak Your Truth trophy, best quote or line. And it goes to Ulther, who says, if the love is true, there's nothing it won't endure. Honorary heartthrob, because I'm just a girl, okay? And I want to talk about the most swoon-worthy moments. So there's many. Number 1, and they're all Ulther, by the way. His face angled towards my leg, his lips nearly brushing my ankle. Tell me then, my queen, how would you like me to serve you? Both palms dragged down my legs, resting on my thighs and nudging them apart in the faintest pressure. Shall I get back down on my knees until I earn another kiss? Sweating. Literally wanted to pass away when I read that. Just floated out of my body. And then we have Ulther, frustrated. What must I do to prove myself to you? Break from House Corbois if you wish. It changes nothing. I will still serve you. Appoint every soul in the realm as your advisor but me. Marry your mortal. Worse, mate yourself off to that snake Amen. Exile me from the realm. I will serve you from afar. Okay. Sweet, sexy man, we love you. But obviously, the most swoon-worthy is his confession when they're dancing at the Ascension Ball. And he says, you are my queen and I am your sword. Point me at your enemies and watch them fall. Leave this world, Diem, and I will follow you into war, into death, into the tundra of hell itself. He took my palm and set it against his chest, just above the patch of unscarred skin that laid beneath his jacket. You are the fate my heart was spared for. As long as it beats, you will never have to fight alone. You are my queen. Every person in this room wants something from you. They look at you and they see the things they want to take. I know because I lived it. From the moment I became heir, everyone wanted to either be my friend or my lover. When you took the crown, I swore to be different, to serve your goals, not mine. I told myself that even if you had no one else, you would at least have me. I never wanted to become just another person who wanted to steal a piece of you for themselves. And I have failed, completely, irreversibly failed. I don't just want a piece of you. I want all of them. I want every breath, every laugh, every tear, every taste of your mouth, every inch of your skin. I want to kneel at your feet, soaked in the enemy of your bloods, then worship your body until you scream my name. Yes, Diem, I want to serve you in every way a man can. I want to burn alive in that fire in your eyes. I want it to melt me down and forge me into the weapon you need me to be. I want to stand by your side for the rest of my life, and I don't need you to marry me or make me a fucking king to do it. I pledged you my loyalty, and you have it no matter your choice, but I cannot keep lying to you or to myself. I want all of you, Diem, and you have all of me. This man is fucking god tier. I love Ulther so much. I literally love him so much. I can't fucking handle it. So we have a love confession from Ulther. It's not love, but it's like pretty much a love confession. And it's going to be like a really wonderful journey to watch the path that Ulther goes on, from going to being somebody that simply is just what Diem needs to how they are going to find equity within this relationship. And I I just love it, but I love him so much. There's something about like, I want to kneel at your feet, soaked in the blood of your enemies. I think about that line all of the time. I know that's a pretty violent line, but I do think about it quite often. It is so hot. Anyway, that is our episode for today. We'll be back a little bit later this week, and we will be finishing chapters 31 through the end of Glow of the Everflame. So come back, finish the book with me. And until then, do not wear black to a descended funeral.